Let's go to church with it. In the society we live in, people are always given definitions based on what they think they know, coming in contact with things and people and places that they've never experienced, and giving it labels to make themselves feel comfortable inside of the illusion that they call life. We have been offered a plethora of pictures of a unconditional God being extremely conditional. We have been offered the definition of a good God, a good Father, thanks to Chris Tomlin and the religious world that partnered with the song. It was a good song. Don't get me wrong. I'm not being condescending. I liked the song. But we've partnered with this idea that a good God, a good Father, is capable of becoming so angry that he does us bad, or so disappointed that he does bad. You do understand that the idea that you can be good and do bad things circumstantially only exists inside of your ego and your understanding of what it is to be something, correct? You do understand that the ego, this place that you live, this fantasy world where you go in and you give definition and interpretation to everything you encounter and everything that you do, and then when somebody calls it an excuse or a justification or a miscalculation, you defend it till your death. And will even don't act like that. Don't act like you won't disconnect with somebody that you called a friend because y'all had a dispute over something that you miscalculated and were fully convinced that you had it right, or vice versa. Don't even act like that. Don't act like these false relationships that you depend on to remain in a false sense of being okay and being needed and being wanted and desired. Don't act like they're that strong. They're not going to do that. God operates on identity and principle. Can we settle on that? God is not emotional and circumstantial. God is not grading your performance while simultaneously unconditionally loving you. You do understand that that's one of those in-betweens. That's one of those places where we live. And we project this idea of life upon an invisible deity that we've falsely given control over our life. But it's really just us deflecting the dominion that comes with our crown and us refusing to be a king or queen of the kingdom that we've been given to reign. We just pawn it off. Pawn it off on people that we see. Pawn it off on one whom we can't. So we carry this idea. We carry this idea that God is a giver. His nature is to give. And this is very true. This is very true. God's nature is to give. God is always on output. You and I were trained to constantly feel that we were indebted to a God whose nature is to give, and a God who has been given freely since before our time, physically, because you and I come from eternity, which is what our Father is. So there is no such thing as before our time in reality. But that's a whole nother conversation. We'll rattle your paradigms with that later. In this narrative, though, of God being a giver, we also carry this idea that God is conditionally operating. And I'll show you how you have been walking around inside of a Christian understanding of a invisible God whom you say is good, but you constantly attribute terrible things to. For instance, how can the God whom we've been familiar with and who we've tried to push off and pawn on other people truly be an unconditional loving and unconditional giving Father, source, deity, when right at the beginning of when before the story even begins, we say Satan was expelled from heaven because he wanted the praise and worship that was solely for your insecure God. And your insecure God, he was fed up he was furious with the idea that one would cross such a line. And not only did he expel and kick out and cast down Lucifer, but he expelled a third of his angels as well, because they partnered with him on the idea. There was no forgiveness. There was no unconditionality in that picture. Adam and Eve being kicked out of the Garden of Eden because they shared a fruit bowl with a talking serpent. No unconditionally loving, unconditionally good Father, God, source there. The blessing of Jacob and the cursing of Esau. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. The betrayal and the ultimate suicide of Judas. Even skip to the New Testament for you. Where in these stories that the religious world has taken and said, these words are the words of the unconditional Father that we are trying to get you to give your life to. Where in these stories is the unconditionality? The Christian says that Jesus came to set the world free from sin, and the Christian says that Jesus came to make all things new. The Christian also says that Jesus did not fail. The Christian says that Jesus was victorious. The Christian says that it is finished. But the Christian still walks around under the interpretation that when something negative is going on around them, there's still a enemy called Satan, the devil, and demons operating against him or her. But if all things were made new, why would all things be made new except for the demons and Lucifer who fell? If all things would be all things. All things would be all people. Understand, we say that Jesus came to make all things new. He did not fail. But yet there's still something that you and I need to do in order for us to become adequate to participate in eternal life. And if we don't operate in accordance with what we were told to do, if we don't follow the rules, we're not going to get in. And we say that this offer was given by an unconditional loving, unconditional giving God. That's not the God that we're talking about. We're not talking about the one who sits high and looks low. We're not talking about the one who allows for evil to reign and punishes those who don't operate on a spectrum of goodness. We're not talking about that guy. I don't know that guy. I don't have any experience with that guy. True life will show you the unconditionality of the true God. Because there are a ton of people around you who are serving and worshiping a false image. An idol is what they called it in the book, of what God is. There are those who operate on the auspice that there is no God. There are those who are offended and upset with God, or who they think God is and what they think God has done because of the control that they think God holds. But these people are still breathing Christological air, are they not? They're still operating, and they're still within the provision of the. And I mean, we can look at their stories and we can nitpick and we can say, well, they ain't had their bill money last month. Well, Sister Martha ain't had her bill money in a couple of years, and the church been facilitating and covering her. And you say it's because of her faith. But the atheist and Sister Martha, the atheist not praying, Sister Martha praying, if they got their bill money without having a job, both got it by the same means, by the same God, by the same partnership in the belief that it would be provided in one way or another. So we've established very early on, God is an unconditional giver. We can see that in action on the day to day. The trees and the plants in the field, the flowers, the fruit. Listen, it's gonna sound crazy, but I need for you to stay with me. The fruit, the rocks, the waves, all of these things that are daily, all of these living organisms, these are living organisms. If you don't believe me, walk through the woods and watch how them vines and things grab hold to your shoe as they're being disturbed by an unwelcome presence. There's all of these things are living entities, and they're all being sustained by an unconditional giving God. I give it, I give life, I extend it. And that's why you and I should never be under the impression, as we say, we are gods, that we are the God, the one and only source and creator. Because what are you doing to sustain the tree that's thousands of miles away from you that you ain't never seen? You ain't did nothing. You ain't did nothing. To be honest, there are things that we do in the environment that's detrimental to the life sources around us, to the life beings around us, and yet those life beings still continue to flourish because you and I ain't got nothing to do with that. We are not the source or sustainer of those things. So what does God give? God gives life. To who? If you are looking at somebody in the physical, anybody that has a physical body has something within them that is causing them to continue to exist and have the ability to operate on the physical plane. Which is why anybody on this internet pushing the narrative that there is a demographic of people who have a calloused third eye and who are not even human, or who are not even natural creations of a natural God, so they can't be good, they can't be right, something has to be off. It's trash. I don't even care that by their criteria I fit the good side. It's trash. It's garbage. It's absolute baloney. With the red part on the outside still and the tomato on it, because I don't like tomatoes. And y'all be eating bologna and tomato sandwiches with mayonnaise on it. I don't like none of that. And bread got Chinese lady Harriet. You should go to a local bakery or make your own bread. Another conversation for another day though. We at church. Sit up. You got that talking and stuff. You need to pay attention to what that man's saying. Anyway, God gives life to who? Everybody who has a physical body is powered by the one and only source. Because now, if you say that there is someone who has a body but is not connected to the source, you have to tell me who the other source is. Because now you have introduced this idea that there's multiple sources. And if there's but one source, and we see someone in existence being sustained by that one source, then how could that person be outside of that source? How could that person be rejected by that source? That clearly that person is being sustained by that source, unless you can tell me who this other source is. Which is why it's insane that you carry this idea of Satan, the devil. Who is Satan's source? Who empowers Satan? So now you tell me there's only one source. But there is a Satan. So then Satan must be powered by your one source. Satan is now powered by your Father. So your Father designed and empowered the very one who set out to destroy you daily. You're a good Father, right? You're a good God. That's why we have to go in and assess what it is that we're saying. Understand, man, most of our grandmamas couldn't even read thoroughly. Like, I'm not being funny at all. There's no chuckle, no nothing. My grandmother had an elementary education, but when it comes to the spiritual makeup of our family, that's who paved the way. Grandma went to church and listened to what pastor said, God said. And I never even met Grandma Pastor. I'm not saying he wasn't a good man. I'm not saying that he wasn't accurate and he wasn't connected divinely. But he wasn't no more divinely connected than you or me. When you open your mouth, I listen just like Grandma was listening to Pastor. Because I understand that there's a source inside of you. And it has to be inside of you because you're in front of me and you're breathing and you're operating, talking. So you got to be connected. You may not know you're connected, but I'm connected. And I know I'm connected. So I can run everything through the filter of my connection with truth and reality and love. And if you say something that don't align, I can dismiss it because it belongs to the darkness and ignorance of you, not me. But the crazy thing is, one day you'll learn to listen to the ignorance of others and allow it to expose the darkness in you that you're blind to. Because everyone in front of us is our what? Our reflection. What else does God give? God gives love. What is love? Love is whole. Love is infinite. Love is limitless. Love goes on and on and on and on and on. It's patient. It's kind. And it's not like our patience. Because, our patience is like, I'll wait. But I'm only going to wait as long as I think I should have been waiting. If you take longer than I think you should have took, even though we have not discussed how long I think you should have took, my patience is going to wear off because it's not patience. It's tolerance. Love does not tolerate anything because love is patient. When, when one is truly patient, it doesn't have to tolerate.